In Cardfight Vanguard, the number of attacks that a Vanguard can do is correlated to how good the card is. Or does it? With how much the community respects multi-attack, I wondered, what is the highest number of attacks that you can do in one turn? I thought about this question during my long vacation for Christmas and New Year's. I thought about it a lot to the point where I would bring out the Vanguard database app on my flights to find cards that could generate more attacks. But in order to fully answer that question, I had to set some ground rules. To start off, the question will be answered in the standard format. Because while I'm not a premium player, I've heard of infinite loops in premium that could cause infinite attacks, which would make this question redundant. Also, for calculating the highest number of attacks, it has to be an achievable game state, meaning that the situation could theoretically exist in a real game. Now this doesn't mean that it is possible to do in a real game, because playing in a real game your opponent could disrupt your game plans, and your draws will never be this perfect. But for the sake of the question, we just assume the perfect game state to achieve the attacks. What I mean by that is that if the game state is theoretically possible if I stack my deck, proceed the game with optimal soul charges, damage checks and draws, and my opponent is also cooperative, then it is theoretically a possible game state, which we can use to calculate how many attacks is theoretically possible. A final rule to add is that an attack is counted when a unit you're controlling makes an attack to an opponent's unit. Things like Shiranui dominating would count as an attack. And things like the Vermilion front row attack only counts as one attack, although it attacks multiple units. Okay, with those two rules set in stone, I can get started on figuring out how many attacks is possible in one single turn. When I first got started, I immediately jumped into theorizing about Hexorb, because with enough Counterblast and Soul Blast, you can perform a lot of multi-attacks with the Kettle Overtrigger and the Great Wand that restands whenever you check a trigger. Hexorb itself already gives you 2 more attacks. Then with 4 of the Great Wands, you can pay the cost to stand 4 more units, so that's 4 more attacks. Hold up, there's also the Great Tree that stands a unit whenever you check a front trigger. And there's also a unit that calls itself when you drive check it. I say that because the grey one on the front row can clear itself when resetting a rear guard. So when you check the unit that calls itself on drive check, you can call it to that circle. This combo requires 5 counterblasts, 4 soul, and a persona ride. Even with all those drive checks, you probably won't deck out. So it should be a possible game state that is legitimate. With that, in total, with the Grade 1, Grade 2 and Grade 3 and Hexa Orb, you should be able to get about 11 attacks. That's pretty good! I thought I got off to a pretty good start. After all, 11 attacks is a lot of attacks that will almost never happen in a real game. Then I remembered, Shiranui has inherently 11 attacks too.
Bruh. Oh shit, here we go again.
With Mukuro skill and Shiranui on stride skill, matched with the Grade 2 Restanding Rear Guards and a Dragon Empire Overtrigger, you could do the same number of attacks as Exorb, which is 11 attacks. It was at this point that I realized that the Dragon Empire Overtrigger is really good for creating more attacks. Restanding your Vanguard allows for Vanguard skills to be reused, which can lead to even more attacks. I looked into a Vanguard such as Nirvana with its inherent ability to restand a unit, which gives 1 more attack. If you restand a unit like Straverina that can also restand a Valiente, this leads to even more restands and even more attacks. After calculating this scenario that involves Nirvana Jiva, Valiente and Straverina, and the Dragon Empire Overtrigger, I calculated another total 11 attacks. Which is kinda disappointing because I thought I was onto something there. I thought I was cooking, but I wasn't. I thought into more possibilities. The red Overtrigger is also really good for creating more attacks. What about lyrical units? They have so many bounces. Celestial has a unit that can hit from the back row, which effectively creates 3 more attacks. What about units with inherent multi-attack, like the Snake Vanguard, which by itself can give +5 attacks, or something like Passion. What about in Dark States, where there's the mechanic of Final Rush with Bruce and Julian's shenanigans? What about Stoicheia boss units, the nation that has boss units that are literally themed around multi-attacks? There's just so many possibilities. So I got to work. I created a document to record every boss unit and supporting unit that provides multi-attacks. On the document, it will label the unit with how many inherent attacks it can provide. For example, a card like Hexaorb can inherently provide 2 more attacks due to her skill. And a card like Minerva, well, the deck can do a lot of multi-attacks. Minerva herself can only give 1 more attack by resending the Vanguard. The other attacks in the deck are the skills of the other supporting units. When I was doing the research, I stumbled upon something that might have saved me hours and hours of my time. Enter a LED Glamour, or just BAT for short. I stumbled across this unit after I asked my friends what they thought the unit that would make the most attacks was. And let me tell you, the moment I saw this unit skill, I immediately stopped my research and focused on making the most amount of attacks that the BAT could do. The reason for that is because of the BAT's skill. At the end of the battle this unit attacked, choose any number of set orders from your order zone. If you choose 3 or more cards with different card names, choose one of your rear guards, stand it. And if you chose 5 or more cards with different card names, stand this unit. Return all the cards from your order zone chosen with this ability to your deck and shuffle it. This skill is a +2 attack on activate, and it is not once per turn. It also uses a scalable and replenishable resource, which is the order zone, as the cost. This is insane, and by itself it can guarantee +9 attacks if you have 24 orders in the order zone. That is insane! And that brings it to 12 attacks already, and with the red overtrigger you can bring out 1 more attack, which makes the number of attacks possible in 1 turn 13. So, is that it? The answer being 13 attacks? The highest number of attacks in 1 turn, 13 attacks. No. With cards like Gravidia Almanon and the Goldog Dragon, you can extend your attacks even more, as Goldog Dragon gets called when you discard a card, and Gravidia Almanon lets you discard a card on battle. And this is not once per turn. Your deck that will be consisted of the right line, 16 triggers, 1 Gravidia Almanon, and 4 Goldog Dragon, and the remaining 24 orders can theoretically perform up to a total of 18 attacks. Since we need 4 Counterblasts and 4 Soul Blasts for the full combo, you run effect crits for the 1 extra soul to increase your soul to 4, so you have enough for the extra attack. And you run orders that do not require you to pay costs, such as the strategy orders in this case. The deck is done and I made it in a Decklog. You may go check it out if you want, link in the description. I decided to go take the deck to a playtest game to see if it is possible. For the early turns, I just ride up as normal, discarding cards that can be set into the order zone, then switching the Eva order from the right line skill to be set into the order zone as well. After I reach grade 3, I willingly take damage with all my damage being trigger units. After this point, I set an order that does nothing. For every turn from that point onwards, pass until at least 25 orders is set and all my pieces are in place. Remember, this is a theoretical game and not a real game, so we can just assume the opponent does not attack us during those 20+ turns whatsoever. Then, the attack begins. Attack, attack. Use the skill to discard and call. Attack, Vanguard attacks. Get a red over trigger and call a unit from hand. In this case, I just call a trigger. Then use the BAT skill to resend itself and the rear guard. Attack, attack, use the skill to call and attack. Vanguard attacks, use the skill, restand. Attack, skill, attack, Vanguard attacks. Skill, restand, attack, skill, attack, Vanguard, attack, skill, restand, attack, Vanguard attacks, skill, attack, and attack. And there it is. 18 attacks. This is what I believe to be the maximum number of attacks possible in the standard format of Vanguard before the 50 to 54 card switch. After the switch, it is probably possible to do 20 attacks, with the card Decklog and the Eclipse Moonlight order. Decklog makes 1 more attack, so with the extra 3 order slots you can use it for 1 more restand, which makes 1 more attack, to a total of 20 attacks after the 54 card switch. If you guys have any other ideas for an even higher attack output, You can send it to me on Twitter or just comment the idea down below. Also follow my Twitter. Hey, why is everything fading to black? Oh god, oh fuck shit, I'm gonna fucking die.